And today, we're bringing to you a man with about the dancehall thing. Long time. And sadly, one of his biggest songs, Deliver Me, he was delivered on 420. And so we're deciding that we're going to highlight the life and works of none other than the one, Tony Tuff.
His real name was Winston Morris.
And it's not the same Winston Morris or Mr. Morris, right? The Hudson that was talking about.
You want to know the joke? I never knew his name.
No,
always was Tony Tuff.
Yeah.
So it was, I guess you hear if somebody said Winston Morris had passed away, you would have figured just but Tony Tuff was a name that resonated throughout the dancehall, reggae and dancehall. Had a mixed career. Wasn't a man who was. It wasn't a Dennis Brown or a Alton Ellis, but he made his mark. And we want to just spend the next hour, and just peeling back the onion of his career, and provide as much information. Not a man who had a big footprint in cyberspace.
And yeah, the web presence wasn't really there.
So we had to search
and do some old time. I almost have forgot to the library and find an
encyclopedia. It was library,
encyclopedia, but there's some heavy reading.
But we have the information, and we're gonna share it with you, the listeners, this evening. Tony Tuff, though, he made his mark, and we want to recognize him for the work that he did, and we want to use the opportunity as well to say to his fans, his family members,
our deepest and most sincere condolences. And Richie, you talk about having a big footprint. If one were to look at the music scene in Jamaica in the early to late 70s, when reggae came in from its infancy all the way to its mid-adulthood, although reggae is still very vibrant, but if you were to look at Jamaican music across the planet now, mostly European countries and some of those were really purveyors of reggae, everybody focusing more on dancehall. However, at that time, there was a lot of players in the game. We're talking about the Trinities, the Big Youths, the Starsky, and all the different Clint Eastwood. All of these guys were out there, making their way, making their living. Dennis Brown still very active, Sugar Minott, Gregory Isaacs. So with all that was happening, he still managed to create and make a couple of good hits that people, when we play those hits today, you're like, oh, that's him, if you didn't know,
But we're gonna start off because he started off as a member of a group. Grew up in Trenchtown, born in Kingston, and grew up in Trenchtown. What is it? His birth 1969, 55, born 1955, and spent almost his entire years in Trenchtown. Was listening to him on one of the few recorded programs I could have get on it, just a few minutes. He talked about growing up, right around the corner from Marley them and the Whalers. He was more interested in playing football though, not so much the music. For him, it was about playing ball, and so Marley was another man who did fancy himself as a football player too, and so that was the kind of connection that he had with him. But watch them grow up, and then, of course, the influence of the music coming out of Trenchtown, and he basically pulled himself into the music business. African Brothers, though, was where they got their start from. The African Brothers was a group that was formed by, what's his name? Howard, Derrick Howard, Sugar Minott, and himself. There was a fourth one. Derrick Howard, Winston, Lincoln Sugar. It was three. And they were kind of more in the Rastaman vein.
Yes.
Again, you know,
roots music was coming into the forefront. I mean, with the advent of Count Ozzy and the Mystic Revelation from that one song we talk about all the while, Carolina. Over the years from that late 1950 forward, Rastafarianism was rearing and just coming to the front in reggae music or Jamaican music at the time. And these guys used to go around to the different dance halls just to listen to their favorite artists at the time, like an Alton Ellis, Ken Booth, a young Dennis Brown, a young Delroy Wilson, and be influenced by them.
I think in the case of these what they call themselves, the African Brothers. And they say that they chose the name African Brothers because of the linkage that they wanted to maintain to their African roots. But in addition to some of those names they called, the Abyssinians was a big part of them influence.
Yes.
Again, the Abyssinians have come through as a Rasta group. Groups like Israel Vibration. The Heptones was certainly another one. And the Gaylads, of course, all of these groups famous for harmonizing and the crooning. And that's where they wanted to go. But as we go along, we will point out some of the pitfalls that they for themselves. But clearly, Sugar Minott came into the group. He was a youngster, 13, 14 years old. And, Sugar Minott clearly had a big vision, not to take anything away from the rest of them. Tony Tuff was the senior of the group. He was the elder of the group. In fact, according to Sugar Minott, they always see him around the place in the car and him guitar play some kind of music. And by the time Derrick Howard came into the picture and decided, let's go down the road with this group, they were basically ready to go.
You mean Derrick Howard?
Derrick Howard. What was it? Dennis. Dennis, I called with him. So Derrick was the de facto leader of the group, if you will. And they were the typical trench tone development. They rehearsed in a big yard. I think they had a little place. I'm trying to remember the name of the down street, but this was a big yard. They had a little bar and everything, and other groups would come and join them in the yard with their own rehearsal as well. But they put a couple of tunes together, and I'm pretty sure you're going to give it a little taste. It's a big G.
They had a couple of hits. Well, we didn't even say hits. There are a couple of songs that they made their mark.
Yeah,
one of the big ones is No Cup No Brock.
Cup No Brock, no coffee, no joy.
Yeah.
They did that with Coxon. But they basically was singing for just about anybody who would have paid them any money.
Sing for them supper.
Right. Because at the time it was most of them youth, and he himself talked about it, Tony Tuff, that the initial objective was to hear your music on the radio or to hear your voice on wax. Worse if you can get a tune that play in a dance hall.
Or on the jukebox.
Yeah, or on the jukebox. That was kind of where the effort was being made.
Jukebox had more of a prevalence than the radio, because at the time not everybody in Jamaica could afford a radio. Well, by the 1970s, radio and record players were more commonplace in a Jamaican household. But a couple of songs No Cup No Broke Party Night, 1970, and Mysterious Nature, 1974, produced by Rupi Edwards. Rupi Edwards, apart from having his own solo career, was a big producer back then.
I think it was, again, one of the things that can be said about reggae music too is the ownership god, because by the 1970s, we had moved away from just the one or two to three. It was Cox and Duke Reed, your boy Bunny Lee. I mean, I always call him your boy.
Love Bunny's music.
But I think by the 70s, and people like Tony Tuff and some of the others who came along represented a growth in the music, and it opened up the industry to a large extent. So it's one of the things that we have to say about an artist like Tony Tuff, and to a similar extent that Sugar Minott. It's difficult to talk about Tony Tuff
without mentioning
Sugar Minott, because it was true. Sugar Minott came into the business through Tony Tuff.
Tony Tuff's career took off.
Right, and Tony Tuff, absolutely. Tony Tuff's career rocketed because of his relationship with Sugar Minott.
That's what they call a
symbiotic relationship. Oh, them say we're speaking about yeah. But and so out of all of this, because I know Sugar Minott became a producer in his own right as well. Tony Tuff also went into production. Derrick Howard, who was the de facto leader he
was the first one to say he wants to do production.
And he became he was pretty good at it. According to Sugar Minott, though Derrick Howard was good at that, but he was never good at leading the group.
He couldn't even lead himself into temptation.
Lead himself. But you give him the credit, for bringing the group, for starting the group, and as I said, they were more interested in doing roots music. Now, the problem with that is they formed alliances with some other people who were looking at music from an entirely different perspective. People like Winston Blake from Meritone. Meritone had a label, in fact, that they did a couple of asides on the Winston Blake's Meritone label. Then there was another guy, Duke Telwell, who did Party Night with
which I played earlier.
Right, which you played earlier. And again, the group never really make any money off these records. In fact, themselves, Telwell, they got some exposure, but the one exposure they would have liked is some exposure in their pocket, money, and no money never run. But the music that they did make an impact. As they say, when a man like a Rupi Edwards pick up your music in them time, it meant that you were saying something. But the influence, the Rasta influence was profound, and it never really tracked.
It never really got popular until mid to late mid 70s.
Right.
So anywhere between 75 and I'd say 1979, 1980. And then by 1980, we were now trending over into the DJ style.
And dancehall. They had done some work. They had a label that Tony Johnson and what's his name? The label was called the Micron label. And they were releasing some of their music on that. But again, they were having issues because one, Howard, who was lead singer on a number of the tracks, was really doing a great job. And so the music wasn't getting the reach that they figured the music deserved. And eventually Tony Tuff took over as the lead singer on most of the tracks after that which sort of stabilized their presence. It was Ronnie Burke, who was also one of the earlier pioneers in reggae sunsplash at the time. So these were, the early introduction of these names into the music business. They claimed that they had a falling out with Blake because them guys were more interested in singers who were interested in people like Barry's Hammond,
Right.
who was singing one step ahead because
R&B and
they wanted to do. These guys wanted them to sing R&B and soul music.
And at the time too, soul had a very big following in Jamaica, because by the time you had newer groups like the Manhattans and Radio and all these other groups, and of course the radio was pumping these songs. So and everybody a soul boy. I know you're in the 70s, the disco era with the platform shoes and bell bottoms, and then of course the African activists.
15 belt round the waist.
Yeah, African activists now where you start wearing that chic shirt. So everything was R&B and disco and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I have to, give some credit to these guys for this kind of foresight, because they always believed that the music that they were doing, they stuck to the music that they believed in. I think it is lost on a lot of people the impact that Haile Selassie visit had on Jamaica in the early 1960s, and it opened up, more youngsters to Rasta and roots. It's not so much Rasta as a religion, but the roots component. And then when you have people like the Abyssinians, they were Sata Masakana and a couple of them other roots shots. The music there was standard within the dancehall still,
Yeah, man.
But it
was within the dancehall. It wasn't in the regular
mainstream.
purview.
No.
It wasn't mainstream because reggae, Jamaican radio at the time did not play Rastafarianism or music with Rastafari.
True that.
You have to go to the party, or you have to go to the jukebox to hear. Like all a song like Bob Marley's Cold Ground was banned.
Yeah, I'm saying feel like bombing at church.
Right.
And then ban the truth.
Talking Blues, sorry. Not cold. Cold Ground.
It's like
Richie was, like a couple nights ago I was playing somewhere and this guy told me there was this Manhattan song he wanted to hear and asked if I could do Dirty Dishes. And Dirty Dishes.
Dirty Dishes.
And the song was I Miss You. It was one of those things. But yes, people would never believe it. Reggae music was not really accepted in Jamaica until late in the 70s.
And a big door opener for that
mainstream
would have been in the late 1960s when JBC came into existence, the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, because that radio setup was designed to be more representative of the talent that was coming out of Jamaica. So, I guess all in good time, we can be critical of some things, but like most things, it's a process. First of all, the music, you have to take ownership of the music too. And I think, and this is one of the reasons why I like the idea that they started out with. They may not have been any big brains, but the realization or the desire to represent, where they might come from in terms of their own lyrical content and so on.
And Richie, sorry, I wouldn't even say them wasn't any big brains, because these guys were very bright. They just didn't have the opportunity to go into that formal education thing. Because again, where you come from has a lot to do with it. Your parents. I remember my uncle talking about, his dad, my grandfather. When he graduated primary school, I didn't tell him he wanted to go to technical school. The man went to Christiana and buy a fork, a shovel, a machete, a fork, and hoe, and a machete. I said, "This is your book and pencil, and this is your school." Yes.
Technical.
So that I just brought that up just to illustrate the fact that the thought processes in your parents or your grandparents at the time, that's what it was.
You made a point about not having the wherewithal. These are some youngsters too, who, Tony Tuff talk about it. He said come from a background and most of the time hungry are killing, you know. He also, as I said, he might have a desire to play football, went to KC and, knock it with some of the big ball players. Alan Skill Cole himself used to knock it with Alan. But he can't play football on a hungry belly because no food in them house.
Requires energy.
Mother have nothing. Sugar Minott made the same argument to that. He also came from a family. I think it was 8 or 9 of them, or 11 of them in them family. And mother used to sell in the market. But they all had one thing in common, is that nothing now going for them, right? And so the music was their outlet. was their outlet.
Or their chance to get out of their current situation.
And so they stuck with it. So plus it was consistent with what was coming out of the period. But most of the youngsters, 1960s, 1970s, most of them youth are by 13, 14, them done at school. Especially if you feel that you have an ear for the music, is either you follow a sound system, Sugar Minott again. Tony Tuff was always hanging around the music.
Dennis Brown was a child star. Derrick was a child star. Freddie McGregor was a child star. And
they were in Trenchtown where they were running into each other constantly. This is the lifestyle for these youngsters, and them will go after it until they make it.
So we're up on a break, and once we come back, we're going to go a little bit deeper into the late 70s when Tony Tuff came of age as an artist, and we're going to play some of his big hits that came out that time. And we're back. So, you were talking about the fact that music was the escape route, that most of the guys who lived in the Trenchtown, Kingston 13, Kingston 11, Kingston 12, that area, and even Rockford, a lot of artists came out of East. We have the misnomer that is only Trenchtown. All of the big artists then come from Richard, but the artists, there are artists from all over Kingston, even the brown skin uptown one them too. Right, Mr. Harman? Yes, boss.
But seriously, they to your point about the music and Trenchtown, there's this view, this association that the music came out of Trenchtown largely. Yeah, Trenchtown may have produced a significant number of artists and musicians in terms of for the era, the size of the place, yes. But the music was largely Kingston based. That's where essentially Rockford was a big part of where the music come from. To central Kingston, because there's some people like Big Youth and not for the other man come from. But I see one of our listeners, Malachi, made a point that the music to them was their outlet, and of course, you have to give them they kind of basically jump on it. Now, the group basically broke up after that, because
it's not Derrick's fault.
No, it was
just time, Bridget. It's like the Beatles, lot of talent, and everybody have them own ambitions.
Well, nice little box.
Yeah. First, made a song before,
Nice little box.
Doing research. Sometimes buck up on something like a gem, So that wasn't that bad outing, the song.
Who produced it?
I'm so glad that was Yaawd.
Yes, Yaawd, 1980. Again, Tony Tuff had a good run, but it was a little inconsistent, if you will. He seemed to, and again, he talked about that.
Actually, sorry, that was produced with Errol Schroeder.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Errol Schroeder, and then later on, he went on to work with Yaawd, and he did Water Pumping, Mix Me Down, and that big hit song, Come for Mash It, which put him right on the. Come for Mash It was the big one, and then Water Pumping and Mix Me Up.
Well, for first outing, a first shot, again, production, our promotion. Because at the first me hear the tune in them, and I will pretend.
Okay.
First me hear it.
Well, I heard it when I listened to it.
Right? But you would figure this is not a bad little song. But again, listening to him in an interview, one of the few interviews that I think he gave, which really wasn't more than about 10 minutes, and he talked about not having the support, right?
Yeah.
Had a desire, but again, music is about making money, and if a producer take a song and him don't feel some kind of money in it, put all of the resources behind the song. But the song itself.
But what was remarkable about this song though is that he worked with Errol Schroeder on producing the song, and it was released on his own Winston label. He worked with Yaawd, because I think I did a misnomer earlier, on 2 albums. One was the album of his same name, Tony Tuff, and I listened to the album, Richie, and it wasn't mastered very well. It wasn't mixed very well. So the presentation that was on iTunes was not very good. And then there's a second album which he did with Yaawd called Presenting Mr. Tuff or Tony Tuff. And that I found I found about 5 songs that I kind of, there's a cover version of that Gene Chandler, Groovy Situation. There was one, Born in the Ghetto, King of Kings, which was an ode to Rastafarianism or Rastafari, Try Our Best, and Groovy Situation. And the last one that I kind of like was a Working Man song. So I'm just going to run a quick run through of these songs. Starting off with Born in the Ghetto, an acknowledgement of where he comes from. Yeah. Groovy Situation on the Presenting Tony Tuff album. And before that, you heard Born in the Ghetto, King of Kings, Working Man song, and Try Our Best. Try Our Best was a song that talked about what's happening in the community around them, but we're trying our best to be better and to be better citizens.
There's a comment that I was responding to on the chat. That the music, the social and socio-economic conditions in Jamaica at the time provided the inspiration for a lot of the artists in terms of providing material that would become the reggae music, if you will. In my view, reggae music became, the Jamaicans took ownership of their music through reggae, because with reggae music, these artists were writing songs based on their experiences. If it's even a girl's experience, falling out with a little chick and ray. But certainly, the social and economic landscape was one that, for most of these youngsters coming out of these inner city communities, it was a trying time. As work hard, forget, you do get a little job, you only get enough pay so that you can come back to work the next day. That has been the story of the sufferer, and reggae is to a large extent sufferer music. It come out of the bowels of the society, where the youngsters, because the music was being made by the island's young.
Hi there. If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yardmedia.com, where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, don't forget to tell your friends.